I was at the airport early that morning. You know that weird mix of stress and stillness airports have? People rushing to get to their gates, announcements echoing over the intercom, little kids pulling rolling backpacks twice their size while others just sit quietly, staring at their phones or sipping bad coffee. I was one of the quiet ones that day, just sitting, watching the world go by while waiting for my group to be called. That's when I noticed her. She walked into the terminal with purpose. A black woman, dressed sharp from head to toe, tailored, blazer, sleek pants, neat hair, minimal but elegant jewelry. She moved with confidence. There was no doubt in my mind. She belonged there. She looked like someone who had done this 100 times. You could just feel it. The way she held her head up, the way she walked like she knew exactly where she was going. There was strength in her presence. She wheeled her carry-on over to the first-class line. Quietly, calmly, just like everyone else. But that's when things took a turn. One of the gate agents, white woman, probably in her late 40s, looked at her ticket, then back at her, then back at the ticket. Something about the way she squinted, the pause in her breath told me she wasn't checking for a seat number. She was checking her. She leaned over to her coworker and whispered something. They both looked over at the woman. Then the first one stepped forward and asked, with a half smile that didn't reach her eyes, "Excuse me, ma'am, are you sure you're in the right line?" The woman blinked slowly. She wasn't surprised. I could see it in her face. This wasn't new. She'd been here before? "Yes," she said calmly. "I'm in first class." The agent didn't let it go. "Can I see your boarding pass again?" she asked, even though she had already seen it. The woman handed it over without a word. The agent looked at it, frowned a little, then said, "Just a moment. I need to verify something with my supervisor." The woman stood there silently, but I could see her jaw tighten slightly. She wasn't making a scene. She didn't raise her voice, but you could feel the weight of what was happening. I looked around. Other passengers were watching too, some with awkward glances, some with that familiar look of, "this isn't right" in their eyes, and some pretending they saw nothing at all. No one said anything. I wanted to, but I froze. That's something I still think about. The agent came back, still holding the ticket like it might be fake. She said something about security procedures and needing a moment of cooperation. But everyone knew exactly what this was. It wasn't about the ticket. It wasn't about the seat. It was about her. And that's when the woman did something I'll never forget. She reached into her purse, pulled out a small leather wallet, and opened it slowly. A badge. She held it up, clear and steady, and said, "I'm a federal agent." You could have heard a pin drop. The gate agent's face changed in an instant, like all the blood rushed out of her body. Her mouth opened slightly, like she wanted to say something, but the words just didn't come. The other agent backed off so fast it was like she suddenly remembered she had something else to do. You could see the panic settle in. They knew they had messed up. The woman looked the first agent dead in the eye and said, "What you just did, that wasn't about policy, that was profiling, and it was wrong." The agent started stammering, trying to explain herself. I apologize, ma'am. We didn't mean any offense, we have to make sure everything's in order." The woman shook her head slowly. "I watched you let 3 white passengers walk through without a second glance. You only stopped me." Then she tucked her badge away, picked up her bag, and walked through the gate like the queen she was. No yelling. No drama, just power. And the silence left behind? It was deafening. I sat there for a while, thinking about what I had just seen. I was angry, not just for what they did to her, but because I knew it happens every single day, in places just like this, to people who look like her, who look like me. She did everything right. She was calm. She was professional. She didn't raise her voice. didn't lose her cool, even though she had every reason to. She had her ticket, her seat in first class, her ID, everything in perfect order. She had clearly earned her place. Whether through hard work, long nights, dedication, or sacrifice, she had paid the price to be where she was. And still, they questioned her. Still, they looked at her like she didn't belong. Still, they made her prove herself, as if her presence alone was suspicious. As if a black woman in first class was something so out of place, it had to be double-checked. Triple-checked. Like her very existence in that space was some kind of mistake. It wasn't about the ticket. It was about their bias, their assumptions, their discomfort with seeing someone who didn't fit their narrow idea of who gets to have access, respect, and dignity. But the way she handled it? That's what stayed with me. She didn't flinch. She didn't shrink herself to make them more comfortable. She didn't try to explain her worth or argue or beg for decency. No, she stood tall. She let her silence speak first. Then, when it was time, she spoke with clarity, with purpose, with power. She turned that moment, meant to shame her, into a moment that exposed them. She didn't let it break her. She didn't carry their ignorance like it was her burden. Instead, she stood firm and made sure they saw her, really saw her. Not just as a black woman in first class, but as someone who had earned her place 100 times over. As someone who didn't owe them anything. Not an explanation, not an apology, not a smile. She made sure they saw her as what she was. Woman of power. A woman of presence. A woman they couldn't ignore. A woman who could not and would not be silenced or shamed. I'll never forget that moment. Because sometimes the most powerful protest isn't loud. It's not holding a sign or chanting in the streets. Sometimes it's quieter than that. Sometimes the most powerful protest is simply being there. Existing in a space they say you don't belong in, standing tall when they expect you to shrink. Showing up in the fullness of who you are and refusing to be moved, and in that terminal, in front of everyone, she did just that. And she did it with grace, with dignity, and with unshakable strength. And I hope those agents remember her. I hope they remember how small they felt in the face of her calm power. I know I will. Forever.